Welcome back to the Sip and Swish podcast. Here with Nick Reed, Lucas McLean, and Jason Stoltz. Playoffs are right around the corner. NBA is on fire. We're going to jump into the first quarter. We call it Sip or Swish, reviewing the best and worst from the last week in the association. Kevin Durant.
Blog boys.
Likeability. Sipping. How can anyone like you at this point, Kevin Durant? I want to like you. You used to be my favorite player in the league. And this last week really just solidified that you're kind of unlikable. So you did a 2-part podcast with one of our favorites, Bill Simmons, where you just really came off terribly, KD. Kind of breaks my heart to say it. Nick, let's start with you.
So it was before the last podcast I started listening to this. I was like, guys, this is awful. I only made it 15 minutes in. You guys both listened to both podcasts, I'm pretty sure. I only got through the first one.
It was like like a car wreck, dude. You couldn't look away. I had to keep listening.
I was listening to when I was like brushing my teeth this morning. I started laughing so hard when he just was like, God, freaking blog boys. Like, all you do is look at stats. And I was like, well, what? Like, I can't watch 82 games times 30 teams. Like, I can't watch every single basketball game to ever exist. I would love to, but God, Durant, you just suck recently.
Right, like until this podcast, takes it to the next level, and this is all of our primary job. There's only so much basketball I can watch. So yes, I watch probably, 6 full NBA games a week. And then, of course, I rely on box scores, highlights, other things to kind of like fill out the rest of my NBA knowledge. Lucas?
It was just so sad, really, because I didn't want to listen to it. But it was like you have to, as an NBA fan, know what an NBA player is thinking throughout the season, getting to know his personality. It felt like I needed to listen to it. I didn't actually want to, because that first part one was just so bad.
It was awful.
Durant just refused to answer any questions. He didn't want to talk about his personal life. He just wanted to talk about, I just ball. That's all I do is ball. I don't do anything else. It's like, well, you are a person. You do other things than play basketball. Like, talk about yourself, Durant. Become likable. And he just didn't.
I would like to do it. Interject just real quickly that I don't think any of the three of us think he's like a bad dude at his core. Like, I don't want any listeners to misconstrue.
No.
I'll speak for myself at least. I don't think Kevin Durant is a bad guy.
I don't think he's a bad guy.
I think he has developed a really weird defense mechanism, and it makes him come off terribly.
I just don't think he gets the NBA. It's really weird because he's this far in, and it's like this season or last season, he just figured out that the NBA is a business. Like, he said that on the podcast. Like, oh, it took me so long to understand the NBA was a business. I'm like, how? How did it take you this long? Like, I don't understand. Every fan understands the business. Your favorite players get traded because of money. Everything's about money. I don't understand why this just now is just you're just coming around to the whole business side of the NBA.
When you're young and you're getting paid millions of dollars to just shoot hoops and do what you love,
that should just be. It's just incompetence, though. You should just understand if you're getting paid $1 million, you should understand why you're getting paid millions of dollars. And it should just be common knowledge. Like, oh, I'm doing this. The fans love me. I'm going to be likable to the fans. If I make a basketball decision, I'll make it, and I understand the fans will hate me. And he was just in shock that fans hated him for joining this team. Like, oh, why would they go against me? They love me forever. It's like, well, how do you not understand the situation? Why are you not grasping this?
Right. Like, what comes with those millions of dollars? All the attention.
Right.
And it just feels like, there were so many things within the podcast that were just contradictory, but it feels like he doesn't want attention, but you're accepting these millions of dollars and you're choosing to be on a podcast. You didn't have to be on the podcast.
Yeah.
You didn't have to do an Uber commercial with LeBron James. Totally weird. Like, it's very frustrating.
And that's a good point. You go on arguably the most famous, well-known basketball podcast in the world and complain about people talking about you.
Right.
And then insult those people who talk about you straight to their face, to the person you are interviewing with and who you've done many of these podcasts with before. It just doesn't make sense to me.
He called Bill Simmons a blog boy, said that Bill Simmons doesn't watch basketball.
Which is ridiculous.
The whole thing was rude. That was kind of like my takeaway is you're just on this podcast being rude. Right off the bat, like one of Bill Simmons' first things was, hey, let's talk about some of your other interests, some of your other pursuits. Like you're involved in Silicon Valley. So like there's this like narrative going on about like your involvement in Silicon Valley. And Katie's response is, a narrative? Well, is it a narrative or a fact, Bill? And Bill's like, well, one, like, why am I being attacked? I mean, I'm putting words in his mouth, but like, why am I being attacked right off the bat? Like, and narrative versus fact, really, Kevin Durant? Like, what's your deal?
I think that's what they're fed. I really think like Warriors, all these top tier teams are just fed from the coaching staff. Like, oh, there's a narrative against you. There's a narrative for this. There's a narrative that none of it's true. You're great. Just keep doing what you're doing. And he's been fed this whole thing that people are against him for insane reasons and everyone else is wrong but him. And it's like, Kevin, you do realize you joined a 72-win team.
73.
73. You know, like, you're the bad guy here.
Good fact check.
But I think my favorite part was at the very beginning when Bill asked, like, I thought a pretty, not scandalous, but whatever question, edgy question about, like, what do you feel about fans and people talking about you? And then Durant responded with, what people have to say in blogs and Twitter doesn't bother me. And then
that's why you have a burner account?
Yeah, right. And then,
more than one.
And then like 10 minutes later, he responds with, all you blog boys and your fanboys that's going to use everything I say and create an article, watch a basketball game. How about you write that? And then it was another like paragraph rant about like, don't worry about me so much. I just want to play basketball. It was like, you completely contradict yourself the entire time.
The entire time.
Don't worry about me. But then it's like, they don't bother me.
He also says how happy he is several times. He's like, man, I've got it so good. I ball, I make millions, I go home, I play Xbox.
He's such a liar.
And you're like, well, then why is everything making you mad right now? Like, why is every one of Bill's questions seemingly bothering you? Why after I listen to this podcast do I feel like you hate me? Like, I feel like you hate me, and all I do is appreciate the game of basketball, watch basketball. I do an NBA podcast, but like, I also am a business owner, Kevin Durant. I'm a successful business owner, and you don't get to talk down to me. and that's why you're sipping.
The thing is, like we said, Durant was so likable. He's so good at basketball. We've never seen someone like Kevin Durant. Even on Simmons' podcast, he's like, you know, Simmons likes to compare people, and Durant hates that for whatever reason. But Durant's
every person's their own special snowflake.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was so annoying. I wanted to hit him in the face.
Durant,
I couldn't reach him because he's 7'1", but
yeah, you'd have to jump real high to hit him in the face.
You'd have to get on that ladder over there and do it.
There's
it's
an earthquake.
Yeah, there are like 50-mile-an-hour gusts. I don't know if you can hear the building shaking in the background of this podcast.
Kevin Durant's getting mad at us. We should move on.
Moving on. Correct. Again, Kevin Durant, you're probably not a bad guy, but you're really coming off awfully. Joel Embiid. Sipping. Poor guy. Orbital fracture and concussion while the Sixers continue to swish. So the surgery was successful. Good news. ESPN has reported he will probably only miss about 2 weeks. Looks like he'll be back at some point within a first-round playoff series. Might miss a game, maybe 2 or 3. Might miss none. Lucas, what's your takeaway from this?
I want to see masked, black mask Embiid. Every time a player
Didn't they outlaw the black mask, though?
Yeah, after Kyrie, but all right, any mask.
Okay.
Any mask brings out the best in a player, and I don't know why, but it's so much fun. If he's out for the first game of the playoffs, I'm not too worried, but he needs to be there for a majority of the first play. I think actually he'll rush coming back. I just feel like that's the kind of guy Embiid is now. He's done with injuries. He doesn't care if his freaking face hurts. I feel like Embiid's going to go out there, and if he gets hit in the face, he's going to punch someone else in the face. I just feel like that's Embiid.
That's the second time Lucas has referenced face punching in this first quarter.
It's only like 5 minutes in.
But like, so Embiid's out. They played 3 games, 3-0 without Embiid, and Simmons is averaging 16, 11, and 11. Like, Simmons is carrying this team.
He looks phenomenal putting the team on his back right
He's
now.
a rookie. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But if I was a Sixers fan, I wouldn't worry too much because he'll be back and he'll probably be very, very mean and aggressive.
And Saric has missed a game or two during the stretch, right?
Yeah.
And he's underrated on that team. He really is underrated.
Wildly.
So when did Embiid go down? Is it
The 28th.
28th?
Yeah, it's been 3 games.
All right, well, that triple-double stat doesn't really count because they played the Hawks, the Hornets, and the Nets.
They played bad teams, but they've won. And they're being carried by a rookie is what something that...
And they're all decisive wins. It's not like what's happening around the league right now where Cleveland is relying on some LeBron heroics to beat the Nets. Like,
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland.
I don't think you should take anything away from Simmons' triple-double.
No,
I mean,
and the
he's
Sixers
also a
handedly
rookie.
beat them.
That's what blows my mind is, like, sometimes we talk about this guy like it's his 5th year in the league, but he's only played, 70 games or 68 games, something like that? Like, it's crazy.
Right, Sixers have won 11 in a row. I mean, they look great. And they play Cleveland this Friday. And this could decide who gets the 3rd seed in the East.
I'd be
very
really
well
happy.
could.
I'd be so happy if the Sixers got the 3rd seed.
If they get the 3rd seed, right now they're either playing Miami, Washington, or Milwaukee. If they stay at the 4th seed, they're playing Indiana.
I kind of think you want to avoid Indiana. I don't know why, but they're kind of sneaky good.
This is a great source of debate amongst myself and like my Philly inner circle, like my cousin and my brother. And my cousin Kurt, shout out. Thanks for always listening. He really believes that playing the Pacers gives us our best chance to advance.
I feel like that's what everyone's saying.
I know. And
It's like
I'm
every game of the season, you'll be like, oh, who are you playing? The Pacers? Oh, you'll win. And then all of a sudden at the end of the year, the Pacers have 46 wins. It's like...
I think because
we have a losing record against the Pacers.
The Pacers play the 76ers really well. And they play this mid-range game that everyone's moving away from, and the Pacers like, no, if you are wide open, just take a shot.
That's why I wish the Pacers were in like a different... They weren't the Pacers. If it was like New York and I'd get to watch them play all the time, I would love to see Oladipo just take like 12 mid-range jumpers a game. The whole team's just making, ISO J's. It's great.
So I will actually be at this game, as you guys know, on Friday.
Yeah, we're happy about it.
We're happy for you.
Wow. So sincere. I can't wait. I'm going to be handing out Sip and Swish podcast business cards to every player. Hopefully that's cool. I don't know if you're allowed to do that. I'm going to give it a shot, though.
I mean, people just sit down in like all the seats and it's like, hey, man, how's it going? All of a sudden someone else comes and sits next to you.
God,
and you're
we
like,
should have got towels with Sip and Swish on, like the hand towels, and just replace the box of hand towels with the players, so they're all wiping their face and on the screen just to Sip and Swish, and then they look at it and Embiid's like, what is going on?
That's a great way to get my brother's season tickets taken away by the organization.
Worth it.
2018 Hall of Fame class. It's a swish, obviously. It's a swish. You guys made the Hall of Fame. Congratulations. Lucas should be very excited about this Hall of Fame class.
Phoenix Suns.
Exactly. Lucas, why don't you just take over at this point? It's a Phoenix Suns Hall of Fame class.
Man, they all deserve it. I think Nash would be obvious. Jason Kidd is obvious. Ray Allen's obvious. I feel like the only one that I'm actually
Ray Allen's the Suns outlier, right? I mean,
Right,
I know
yeah,
he was a bit of a journeyman towards the end of his career.
but he never played on the Suns.
Okay.
But I feel like the one that I'm really surprised that fans aren't like instantly upset about is Grant Hill. But like, it's a basketball Hall of Fame. It's not the NBA Hall of Fame.
well, right.
So-
when these came out, my dad texted me. He was like, Grant Hill is in the
Right.
Hall of Fame. Like,
I'm like, well, he won 2 national championships. He's a 10-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA. He was a great player. When he was coming out, it was like he was LeBron before LeBron happened. His rookie year, he averaged 21, 5 and 5, and it was like, you're the second coming. And then when he turned 26, it was 27, 6 and 6, and it was like, oh my God, this guy's so good. And then he got injured, and his career just kind of fell apart from there. But
until he went to Phoenix, right? And then he kind of had that resurgence. It was never the same.
they put robot legs in him.
so he never had like the NBA career that everyone wanted him to have.
Right.
Or when people look at the Hall of Fame, they're like, oh, this guy deserved it because he was on this many All-NBA teams. He won this MVP. It's like that wasn't Grant Hill, but in the scope of basketball, Grant Hill is humongous.
I had him as 5-time All NBA. So
5-time?
Yeah, you had said 2. We'll fact check.
Oh, it is 5-time. It's 5-time. I had on my list Jason Kidd and Grant Hill's very close. Smushed together.
Lucas has a lot of arrows and weird diagrams.
I wrote it.
It's not great.
He makes his notes in emojis.
I will say the one thing about the Hall of Fame is I think it's not. They allow way too many people in. Like it's 4 a year.
No, last year there was only one. It was only T-Mac.
Was it only T-Mac?
Yeah, the year before that it was Iverson and Shaq. I don't know if they let too many people in.
I think a lot of people. There's some people,
but I feel like
you could have made the argument for T-Mac not getting in.
You could. I think it was like an adjustment period because I feel if you go back and you look at the stats about all the people that are in the Hall of Fame, it was like the older guys that are like, that guy really wasn't that great, and you can't compare this guy in the 70s to anybody now. And it's like, wow, he shouldn't have been in, but at the time, like I feel like it's all context. That
it is.
Personally, I'm missing. Like, if I look back and I saw some guy in the 60s average like 15 and 5, but at the time he was so great, it's like I look at that and I'm like, I don't really like that. I'd rather have T-Mac in.
But that's all you can do at any given time. Like, I don't think we should be judging players against 2 decades ago or waiting to judge until 2 decades from now. All you should be doing is judging them against their peers that are playing basketball in the same era. With the same rules, with the same 3-point line, with the same shot clock. I mean, you can kind of go down the list. But yeah, I love this Hall of Fame class. Ray Allen, Jesus Shuttlesworth. I mean, I don't know if you guys were alive when that movie came out, but it was fire. 2 NBA championships, most made threes in the regular season and postseason. Jason Kidd, second all-time in assists and steals when he retired. Steve Nash won back-to-back MVPs that he stole from Kobe.
Oh, my God.
I will say, I was back to Ray Allen. I was at the game when he broke the record, just saying.
Were you?
I was. It was Celtics-Lakers, and I forget which quarter it is, but it was for my dad's birthday. And me and my family went, and everybody there, it was the coolest thing being in TD Garden when Ray Allen broke the 3-point record. Just they completely stopped. He hit it, they stopped the game. Just everyone erupted. I was like, yeah! And I was like, wait, what?
That's awesome.
Lakers won, though.
So I have a question for you guys with this Hall of Fame class. Where is Ben Wallace? I'm going to go with all the fanboys of Detroit and ask, where is Ben Wallace? 4-time All-Star, 2-time rebound champ, 1-time block champ, 5-time All-NBA, a 6-time All-Defensive player. No, 6-time All-Defensive team, 4-time defensive player. And then he won a championship. He's like the complete defensive player, and he didn't have any offense. But you were like top 3 defensive player of all time, and now it's like,
how long has he been eligible for now? It's been
a while.
It's been forever.
Yeah.
But this is what I mean. They like let people in that.
I think this class deserves it though. Everyone on this class
but I mean, then you get.
I don't see why Ben Wallace couldn't be on this list.
That's what I mean.
Why
There's
couldn't you get 5 people on this list?
Do you want to say they allow more offensive talented players in, and then the defensive players kind of?
So
absolutely,
do you think
it's like the show?
It's NBA basketball. It's all about offense.
Yeah, I don't think
defense is.
I guess basketball.
Defense is like third. Like offense is the most important. Offense is the second most important.
Mm-hmm.
And the third most important is offense, and then your bench warming abilities, and then your defense.
So how do you feel about Yao Ming being in the Hall of Fame? Do you think that's a good call? I mean, he didn't really do anything.
He didn't really do anything. I mean, except expand basketball to a huge market.
Right, but I mean,
that's because China forced him to be number 1.
Yeah, that's a great conspiracy. That's my favorite thing ever.
I feel like we're getting really off track, but I'm okay. All right, hit me with the conspiracy. I've never heard this.
The theory is that the only way Yao Ming could play in the NBA was if he was taken as the number 1 overall pick.
China wasn't going to let him leave.
If China, as a country?
Yeah,
they would not let him go unless he was the number 1 overall pick going to the Rockets.
Wow.
Yeah, and the only team out of the top 3, the conspiracy goes that would agree to take Yao Ming was the Rockets. So they put him at 1.
He was pretty damn good.
He was.
I don't know if he was a Hall of Famer.
He was 7'6", and had but he was so injury prone.
True. Well, that's because The Chinese pumped him full of human growth hormone.
Do you guys remember the?
That's the other theory.
I think it was iMac or no, iBook or whatever, MacBook, whatever. Commercial Yao Ming was in. That's like my lasting impression of Yao Ming. I think he was on a plane and he had like an Apple laptop. I'll just say that since obviously I can't remember which specific one.
It's an iBook.
I think he might have even been with Mini-Me in that commercial. And Yao Ming, I think, had a tiny one. Mini-Me had a huge one. It was a good. It's my lasting memory of Yao Ming. Anyway, Ben Wallace.
Hall of Fame worthy.
No, not Hall of Famer. Sorry.
Really? You don't think
4-time Defensive Player of the Year? Get out of here.
And NBA champion?
Did you ever watch him try and shoot?
He doesn't have
He
to
was
shoot.
incompetent on one side of the
Wouldn't
ball.
he have been like the first undrafted player to be in the Hall of Fame?
I don't know.
Do we
I
want to
guess
talk
so.
about the inductees anymore?
No, let's
right,
move
moving
on
on.
to like real basketball now.
All right, so we're going to do some sip or swish quick takes to close out this first quarter.
So we got sidetracked a little bit there.
Just a little.
Yeah.
So there's 3 of them, and I'm going to hit you guys with them all in a row. Respond to them at your leisure. Mitch Kupchak with the Hornets next year. Quick take, sip or swish it. Kemba will remain a Hornet. Quick take, sip or swish it. Whiteside is
Can't go this fast.
from Miami. Quick take, sip or swish it.
I'll tackle this. Mitch Kupchak, that's a sip.
Oh, really?
He will not be with the Hornets, or he's going to sip as
Like
the
he's gonna
Hornets?
sip as the Hornets
Okay.
GM because his time's over. They need to go more towards the analytics side. Kemba Walker will not be on the Hornets in the future.
Okay, I agree with that.
He's out of there.
Okay.
There's no way they're going to make the playoffs. Hassan Whiteside, he's staying on the Heat.
I think he's
Pat Riley doesn't take too kindly to having his hand forced.
Yeah, Pat Riley can just.
I don't even know if Pat Riley could trade him. His contract is so untradeable.
It's an albatross.
It really is. He's gonna get paid $27 million next year, and then the year after
Is that a Masters teaser?
Yeah, baby.
So I don't think you can trade Hassan in any which way. So it's like just make him happy until his contract's over, or until maybe he has 1 year left remaining, and you can trade him as an expiring.
Or
But-
don't make him happy. I feel like that option is always overlooked. Like
you know-
you're paying that money regardless. So just do what's best for your team. If he's gonna kind of be like a cancer to the team, cool, man. Sit on the bench. Better yet, don't come to the game. I'm not saying that's the move to make with him. I'm just saying that's an option that I feel like is always overlooked when it's like, oh, but we're paying him so much. Well, if you're paying him that much and he's not helping, see ya.
Right.
What do you guys feel about them signing this Chris Bosh guy? I heard he's pretty good.
I'd love it.
They're
I would
still
love
paying
it.
Chris Bosh.
Oh yeah, they're still paying him $20
lot.
million a year.
But the Chris Bosh potential comeback thing just always it just
It's a
scares
teaser.
me. I don't want something bad to happen.
I don't want to see someone die on the court.
Welcome to the second quarter. This week we have an interview with Oleh Kosel, editor of PelicansDebrief.com.
I'm so excited for this interview because we love talking Pelicans on this podcast. How's it going, Ollie?
Going great, man. And I've got to ask, is it more positive or more negative?
Been more positive.
It's been very positive. We had MVP talks for Anthony Davis, considerations, you know. Some. I mean,
Good,
Jason
good.
and I were on the Anthony Davis train, and you were more on the Damian Lillard train, but, you know, we forgive you for that.
Yeah, we forgive your mistakes.
Some teams are in the third seed.
So, Ali, let's start off by maybe asking you, can maybe make your best case to us and the listeners for why Anthony Davis should be considered, should be strongly considered for MVP this year.
Okay, sure. It's really 2 things that it comes down to. The first one is the simple fact that he lost his all-star running mate, DeMarcus Cousins, and everybody expected the team to basically fall off a cliff, including me. So it was quite a shock that after, I think they lost 4 of their next 5 games after Boogie was lost in that Houston Rockets game with that Achilles tear, the Pelicans went on a tear. And in that time frame, they won 10 games in a row. And Anthony Davis was playing like a beast. He's being compared to all sorts of legends in the past. For a month, I think he averaged right around 35 points and 15 rebounds. So he's basically putting up numbers that people I hadn't seen in decades. So that's one thing. He was doing it on the numbers and on the number side, and the Pelicans were winning. But I think the biggest thing that's been overlooked is the fact that Anthony Davis, seemingly to me, and a lot of people that really follow the Pelicans basketball understand, is that he's probably the best two-way player in the league. And so in this day and age where advanced numbers and all this and that is kind of progressing, why is it that MVP talk still just basically largely focuses on one side of the ball? 50% of the time, guess what? These players are playing defense. And you know what? It's hard to argue that Anthony Davis hasn't made the strongest case when you look at everything. And I'm not just talking blocks. I'm not just talking grabbing those defensive rebounds. He's a menace near the rim for opponents. They simply can't get around him. I mean, let's face it, that athleticism, all those legs and arms everywhere, you can't get around that.
Sure.
And the biggest thing is it's his hustle stats. When you look at, and I love that fact that NBA.com has released some newer stats over the last few years because it kind of shows what these players are really doing on the court besides those raw stats. And when you look, Anthony Davis is really great at deflections, contesting shots, you name it. He's among the league leaders in a lot of those categories and definitely leading the Pelicans. So to me, it seems like this guy's playing, and let's face it, he's playing more than regular starters than most players. So he's out there on the court busting his butt on both ends of the floor and making a difference, as to where I honestly, James Harden, he's still that defensive liability. Damian Lillard, while he does give that effort, also, you just can't, he's not known as a stopper. So
Right.
When you look at all the other candidates, it seems like Anthony Davis's resume is just the most polished.
I think those are great points, and I totally agree. I mean, MVP, everyone is still talking offensive stats and leaving out half of the game. I heard kind of that a similar argument made for why LeBron should be considered over Harden as well, because their offensive numbers aren't so different. And sure, it's like kind of been a down year defensively a little bit for LeBron, probably through lack of effort and focus, on a game-to-game basis. But he's still a better defender than Harden. But yeah, I mean, I think those were really strong points, and I continue to be sold that Anthony Davis should strongly be considered.
He should definitely be in the talks. This is the second year of basically an offensive-minded player winning the MVP. And I want to go back to like prime LeBron, where it was like, okay, he won MVP based on his defense and offense.
Or even Jordan back in the day. I mean, Jordan was, first team all defense. I mean, he was an amazing defender. So right
guys,
now,
I definitely remember that. There was one other thing I wanted that we should include when you talk MVP talk, of course, and that's team record. I'm curious how you guys feel about that, because let's face it, most of the time these MVPs, they come from a team that finishes, 1 or 2 in their league or in their conference. So I'm not sure if that's another, sticking point that you guys like or not, but I'm certainly not on that bandwagon. A player who simply makes the biggest overwhelming difference to their team's win total, I think should be considered regardless of the overall records. What do you guys think?
I've always been on record saying, like, I think top 4 seed in either conference doesn't have to be like, number 1 or number 2, because there's a lot of teams, like, you look at the Celtics and they haven't had their best players all year. I mean, Kyrie's only played 60 games, so at best. I think Anthony Davis, if they got up to like the 4 seed, I think he could easily be the number 2. I still think Harden's had such an incredible year, whether you want to, I know he missed some times and that was my knock on him. But I think record has to play a little bit into it, because you've had like Giannis, who was an early runner for MVP, and then his team slipped down to now they're all tied for the 6th seed.
But I mean, what's interesting, Nick, is that you blink and New Orleans was, the 4 seed.
Right. So
then you blink and now they're the 8. I mean, there's so little, in terms of wins and losses separating 4 through 8 right now that, I don't know, hard to penalize the guy just because maybe his team winds up losing one more game than the 4 seed. So to me, I think as long as your team makes the playoffs, I think that's the test. I don't think we should have a league MVP from a non-playoff team.
Oh, absolutely.
What I don't like about the MVP race this year is that it was basically given to Harden from day one, and there hasn't been another conversation ever since. It was like the first week Harden went off, and then it was like, okay, he's the front runner MVP, and then every week they just kept adding that same story and narrative over and over and over again. Now we're like too late to make up a new case for someone else. Like, it's too late to really say like Anthony Davis deserves it when he really does, but it's like too late in the season, and you're not going to change. Like, people's minds are already set. But I totally think that, like, the seeding thing, I think Westbrook's MVP kind of changed that whole thing for me. Just because I think his team was, the 7th seed last year?
Maybe 6th? I'm not sure.
But that changed it, because previously it was, like, the last 15 or 16 years, everyone had been a fourth seed or above. So it was like, that was like the standard gold. And then Westbrook came in and kind of broke that mold. And now I'm kind of like, well, why not? Why can't Anthony Davis win this, being the 8th seed or 7th seed or whatever? As long as he's still in the playoffs, I'm totally fine with that.
So, Ollie, where do you see, I mean, it's probably a good time to transition. Where do you see New Orleans finishing? Or is it just such, I mean, chaos right now that it's just too hard to say?
Oh, it really is, guys. I mean, let's face it. What is it? 5 teams are separated, or is it 6? I forget. They're separated by 1.5 games. I mean, yeah, this one's called that famous phrase, too close to call. I mean,
Sure.
you're better. Your odds are probably better just flipping a coin. Everybody here in New Orleans was talking, just a couple of weeks ago, whether the New Orleans Pelicans could go ahead and score that first-round home court advantage, and could we possibly catch Portland Trailblazers? 4 losses in a row later, we're now just fighting to make the playoffs. So you just really don't know. That being said, I do think that they're primed for kind of a turnaround as to where they're going to get back on the ship, or right the ship, I should say, so because their schedule lends to it. They've got 2 cupcake matchups starting tonight against the Memphis Grizzlies. And it's well known pretty much that these teams have already packed it in. I mean, Memphis, my goodness, they're not even playing Marc Gasol but 20 minutes. And
Right.
With them hanging on, what is it, guys? I think they're second to last in the league in terms of record. They do not want to lose that spot. So
No,
gonna
they're
do everything
trying to
in
win
their
the tank.
powers to lose the game. Yeah, and then, of course, Phoenix.
They play
is
Phoenix
next,
on
and,
Friday,
my goodness,
yeah.
I think Phoenix, guys, has won, one game in the last 2 months?
Or
So-
1 in 16.
1 and 16. Lucas is actually a Phoenix Suns fan, as tough as that
Oh,
must
I'm
be
sorry.
this year.
It's been a great season, I tell you what.
So yeah, I mean, I agree. Those are 2 all but guaranteed wins for the Pelicans.
Right, and then they finish off it, and that's where it gets hard, or you can say interesting, depending on your perspective. Then after that, they've got the Warriors, Clippers, and the Spurs left, with 2 of those on the road. Personally, I think they're going to go 4-1. They're going to probably lose to the Warriors because they're going to be, basically looking to get all their guys back and getting them accustomed to playing again. They just got Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant back. And, of course, they won't have Steph Curry, but that's one formidable team looking to get themselves ready for a deep playoff run. So that's where I'm chalking up a loss, but they're going to take the Clippers. They fared pretty well against them this year. And the Clippers seem to be just on the brink of, falling out of this race, even though they pulled off a heck of a win last night. But you just don't see that maintaining. Of course, it's going to come down to the last game. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but 3 years ago, the Pelicans were in the same shoes. They had to play the San Antonio Spurs at home to make the playoffs. And I'm afraid that that's what we're going to get come next week. Same exact scenario.
So in the playoffs, Pelicans make it. What is their favorable matchup? Which team would they want to face?
I think there's a couple of them, and I'm just basing on how they played against them this year. Even though they're the number 3 seed, I really like that matchup against Portland.
I think so too. I think that's
the
probably their
Pelicans-
best one.
Cool. You know why? Because Drew Holiday, he is still overlooked by a large part of the national media. He is simply, one of the best lockdown defenders in almost every game. C.J. McCollum or Damian Lillard, one of those guys have an off game, and the large reason for that is Drew Holiday. He's an animal out there. He doesn't give you an inch. He's got quick hands and even quicker feet. So you can't get around him. You can't shoot over him because his athleticism is, really good. That's also an underrated part. And then the other thing is Anthony Davis. I don't think the Portland Trail Blazers can guard him. They don't have anybody that matches up really well. So you've got AD, who should be a terror, probably putting 30, 35 efficient points up. And then you've got Drew shutting down one of their guys. It seems like it's a good matchup. And it's, besides I think, they won 2 of 3 against Portland this year. So they've already proven those results. And the other team I like is the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't know. Yeah, everybody thought coming into the season they might be that 3rd team out of the West that people need to fear. But, that experiment has definitely failed. You've got Westbrook, Paul George, and Carmelo who just simply need the ball too much in their hands. And when they start missing a few shots, then they start pressing and even playing less as a team. They don't have enough role players. And the Pelicans, again, have fared really well against them. My only concern with them is Steven Adams, who can really lock down that middle. And the Pelicans really like to get most of their points from inside the paint. And Anthony Davis usually doesn't like playing against those big, burly centers. But for the most part, the results have been there. So I guess you got to go with the Thunder as my number 2 team.
That's interesting because Paul George just came out and said his shot feels off. He can't figure out what's going on with his own shot, but he just says, like, every time I shoot, it just doesn't feel right. So it's like something fundamentally is now wrong with his shot.
That's
like,
interesting. I didn't see that.
I think that came out last night. He just said that, and I was like, oh, okay. And I really wanted you to bring up the Thunder because I think the Pelicans could beat the Thunder.
Sure.
Because Carmelo is just a shell of a human being now on the basketball court.
Yeah, I don't think they could. I think they would, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, Westbrook, he's trying to do too much because, he doesn't have a real Carmelo Anthony. He has this weird, super past his prime all of a sudden Carmelo Anthony.
He dropped off a cliff so incredibly hard, but this whole playoff push with the Pelicans made me really sad because I want Boogie and AD to be that duo against OKC. I just feel like they would just demolish OKC.
They'd be dropping a combined 90 points a game.
Exactly. Boogie and Anthony Davis would both have 35 plus a night in the playoffs.
Yeah, guys, the word around the league was everybody was afraid of the Pelicans. Outside of the Warriors and the Rockets, everybody, when asked whether it was opposing coaches or high-up executives, they all pointed to the Pelicans as being the team they didn't want to face in the playoffs for that exact reason.
How do you guard
those
it?
two big guys?
Right. It's impossible, especially with the rest of the league just going small fours. It's basically you have two incredibly athletic centers. And no one can guard one. You can, at most, you'd have a team have one traditional center out there playing D, and then the other guy's just getting exposed.
So you bring up position. Yeah. We did our all NBA picks on last week's podcast, and there was some debate amongst the three of us as to where to list Anthony Davis in terms of awards and that sort of thing. I mean, where do you think is the legitimate? Or, what is the legitimate position to list Anthony Davis?
I think he's going to be looking at mainly all NBA selections. I mean, without a doubt, the MVP race, like I said, we've talked about it, traditionalists, just there's too many still in the voting ranks, and so they're going to look at team record. They're going to look at how he's performed down the stretch. And admittedly, he hasn't been there, that cannon of a guy when during the 10-game winning streak, he was posting those incredible numbers nightly. So I think that's all lost. I don't know about the Defensive Player of the Year. There's seemingly a stronger case being made for Drew Holiday to win that award in New Orleans, which is kind of surprising. I mean, I think they're both equally important, but it's like comparing apples to oranges. So really, who do you pick? I mean, each one is so valuable and necessary for the Pelicans to be successful. So that's why I think all NBA selections are probably going to be it. And I would expect him to make both first team offense and defense.
Okay.
So I'm shooting high with that just that award.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. And would you expect him to be a center or a forward on that team? Because I liked listing him as a center. Or no, I'm sorry. Did I listen? I listed him as a forward, and you guys both had him as a center. I mean, where do you think? What is his core position? I guess as you see it in terms of where you're going to list him.
Traditionally, and everybody knows this, he loves to be designated that power forward. He doesn't want to be known as a center in the league. So, based on that account, maybe he should be listed as a forward. But, he does his best work. And again, for the second straight season, he's played, I think, more minutes at center than he has at power forward. Because even though when the Pelicans had Boogie, usually one of those two guys was always on the floor. So AD was always filling in for all those center minutes when Boogie, was resting for, I guess, that 12, 13 minutes of the game he didn't play. So I think he's built up enough minutes to qualify at center, and personally, I think that might be the better choice, simply because this season he's really just, I guess, I don't know how you want to say it, but he's really just taken to that role where I'm going to do anything for the team. I'm going to play whatever position, whatever's necessary to get wins. In the past, Anthony Davis, and granted we've seen him get nicked up here in the last, a few times over the last month, but for the most part, he's really taken and fought through any injuries. Like against the Portland Trailblazers recently, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but he twisted his ankle in the third quarter, and it was really a bad twist. Replay, and you could see him grimacing and such. But he made a point to come back in and finish that game. So he's been just that soldier that he's always been criticized for not being in the media. So I guess I don't know. I mean, I feel like he's made his case regardless of whether it is at forward or center. But personally, I think I'm with the group that prefers to see him get that award at the center position.
Yeah, I remembered I watched a game. It was the Pelicans versus Clippers. It's got to be like 3 weeks ago now. And he got banged up, was going towards the locker room, and before he could even get there, like threw up in the hallway. And I was, it's late over here, so I was like, I'm going to go to bed. Like, this game's over. Woke up the next morning, he came back in. He dropped like almost 50 points. I was like, oh, okay, this guy can really play through injuries now, whereas before that was, like you said, a big knock on him. Can he play through injuries anymore?
Right, it would be nice to
I
put that
agree with you
narrative
guys. I think it wasn't
to
in
rest.
that game he took a shot from DeAndre Jordan. And it was, I think, to the ribs or something that. Yeah.
He came back and finished with 41 with like 4 blocks. I'm just so jealous I don't have anybody remotely like this on my team. I don't think he's a top 5 player in the league, and it's just he can do literally anything.
Right. I mean, the only player that really resembles him at all would be maybe Joel Embiid, because he is such a good two-way player. He can score from outside, he can score from inside, but I mean, Anthony Davis is light years ahead of him at this point.
And he's so fast too. Like Embiid looks like a huge center doing like guard stuff, but Anthony Davis looks like
that's fair. The way he moves, it's different.
It's so smooth, and it's more like Giannis, I feel. But like Giannis doesn't have a jumper, so he's endlessly driving. But like Anthony Davis can hit a 17-footer, and that's terrifying for every single team in the league. I don't know. I love this guy. I really do. I don't know what the Suns would ever have to do ever to get a player like Anthony Davis, but I want
Pray
him.
a lot.
Pray a lot. Seriously.
So, Ali, last question, and then we'll let you get out of here. And we thank you so much for your time. You've been super insightful. What do you hope the Pelicans are going to do regarding Boogie? Do you want to see him long-term with the Pelicans? Are you afraid that the history of players coming back from this injury is not great? It doesn't bode well. What's your take?
Yeah, that's $1 million question. Talk about almost every day still, even though the injury happened back in late January. I am on the boat where I think you've got to bring him back, and it's for a variety of factors, but none more important than the fact that Anthony Davis, that's his buddy, that's his pal. I don't know if you guys watched the All-Star game. Well, actually, I'm sure you did, but did you catch the moment where he wore Boogie's jersey out there at the start of the game?
That was awesome.
And he's basically made all of these references as to where they really, truly are like the best of friends. And so for Anthony Davis to finally have that here in New Orleans, and suddenly, you think about the idea of maybe him not having it when the Pelicans have not been that winning franchise, where they haven't really made inroads since he's come into the league. I think that would be devastating for the Pelicans to retain AD down the future when his contract is up and up for renegotiation. So I think it's paramount. You've got to keep Boogie almost for the simple fact. If you want to keep Anthony Davis in town, you've got to bite the bullet and take your chances on Boogie. So that's the number one reason. I know some people don't like that because then you're kind of handcuffing the franchise. But, when you look at a small market like New Orleans and you look at the history of really almost any of these small markets, what are their odds of signing one of these or trading for one of these big stars in the league? It's very, very close to almost zero. Dell Demps got lucky. Vivek wanted Buddy Hield because he saw Steph Curry out there on the floor. If that doesn't happen, they don't have Boogie. And, of course, AD would still be without that incredible running mate. So I think, you've already scored him. You got to take that chance. Now, I hear you guys completely on that injury. Big men especially, they do not bounce back. And Elton Brand's a very good comparison. He simply was not the same player when he came back from his Achilles tear. So that's like I said, that's the struggle. I'm personally thinking that Boogie, he's going to, because of his skill set, and he's never relied on the quickness or athleticism outside of maybe a quick step to beat somebody off the dribble, but everything else doesn't really require for him to be at full strength to have that same type of explosiveness, because let's face it, I don't think he was ever truly explosive with him. So he's going to still be able to shoot the three ball. He's still going to be able to pass like one of the, the best big men in the league. He's got that tenacity. He's still got that big burly body for the rebounding. So, I mean, I don't see a scenario unless, let's say during the rehab, there comes out news that there's been some kind of significant setback, that's when then you have to maybe reconsider your options. But until that point, I think you got to go all in on the big guy, because New Orleans has proven that this do it big has a chance in this league where small ball predominantly dominates the scene. This do it big can possibly knock off, a Warriors or Houston team. I mean, let's face it, when they beat that Houston Rockets team, granted they lost Boogie at the end of it, they knocked off a team that hadn't lost. And I'm not sure if they have lost since or not when all three, Harden, Chris Paul, and Capella play. So that was really big news. So they have stumbled, I want to say, across a formula that works. So you've got to ride it out. You've got to ride it out.
Love it. Fair enough, man. Well, thank you so much again for your time. Hopefully Pelicans are playoff bound, and maybe we can get you back on at some point during the playoffs.
Man, sounds good, guys. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
All right. Let's start the third quarter. We're going to do awards. We're going to do Coach of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved Player, Sixth Man, and Rookie of the Year. We're just going to gloss over MVP because I think
It's Anthony Davis.
we all agree that's Ron Baker. That's what we all agree on.
No, it's Gilbert Arenas.
Gilbert Arenas wins it all.
I mean, after that interview, man, he made a really strong case for Anthony Davis.
Did. I would, if it wasn't the whole, if I had to bet money on it, it's going to be Harden just because that's how it's going. But if you just took Harden out of the picture, it'd be Anthony Davis. He deserves it.
Yeah, but no, James Harden's going to win. It's not too interesting to talk about. I mean, he's the best player on hands down the best team this year.
Yep.
It is what it is. Most improved. We said we were going to kind of lump in with MVP, right?
We can do that, yep. So I think we all have Oladipo.
Yep.
Most improved. It's insane, the transition he did over the offseason. He got, absolutely ripped in shape and then went from an inefficient 18 points per game to an incredibly efficient
To his
26 or 25 points per game.
To his $20 million contract
Looking reasonable now.
reasonable. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
And the Pacers went from projected 23 wins to right now 46.
I think it was 30 wins was a high for them.
Well, that was the high for the year.
Right now they're the 5th seed.
And it's all because of Oladipo.
Right. I mean, they are the most surprising team in the league this year, hands down. I mean, as our resident Thunder fan, I can tell you Oladipo was trash last year.
He wasn't great.
It was literally he would come in the game and I would just be counting down the minutes. Start my stopwatch. How long does this guy have to play? But he's phenomenal this year.
Yeah, no, that was the most fun last year. How long they'd actually leave Westbrook out and let Oladipo take over the game, because it was we can be up by 15, and then Oladipo and everyone else would play, and they're down by 13 in a 2-minute span. But
Up by 15 and then down by 13 in 2 minutes.
It felt like it.
What a roller coaster.
It felt like it. So Oladipo killing it.
We're going to go into Coach of the Year. I guess this will be the first real category. Jay, how do you feel about Coach of the Year?
Brad Stevens.
Brad Stevens.
Obviously, Brad Stevens. He heard Lucas's hot cake from 2 podcasts ago, where Lucas
2 wins
famously stated Boston was going to lose 10 of their next 12 games to close out the season.
What's their win streak at?
6,
I believe.
I still stand by that was an okay take because they're gotten so freaking lucky. We watched 2 game-winning Marcus Morris threes at
He's
the
still
very
defending
last because it's okay. It's a fine take. Brad Stevens is a great coach, but they
guys.
they shouldn't be winning these games. They're winning by pure luck. By 3 of those games were game winners, and whatever. Getting sidetracked, but
no,
Brad Stevens is a great coach.
I think he's done the most with essentially the least at this point. The team was pretty stacked coming into the season. Then they lost Hayward, and then everything else far more recently. I mean, for them to go on a 6-game win streak and to creep back up into contending for the number 1 seed in the East as Toronto has started to falter. I mean, he's got to be Coach of the Year.
That's something I was, for a while everyone's like, oh, it's Dwayne Casey. He almost got fired. He became this awesome coach. They got the 1 seed. In the last 3 weeks, the Raptors have just looked.
Recency bias is really good.
Recency bias has made Dwayne Casey lose.
I think he's probably top 5 still, but I think he's 5. Like he's at the very tail end. Like what he did was great this whole season.
And I wanted to pick Brad Stevens, but I went with a better feel-good story. Quinn Snyder of the Utah Jazz. We all had Utah. You guys had Utah as the 7th seed.
And right now they're the 4th.
They're the 4th seeder. I had them as the 8th seed. They are dominating the league. They have the best defensive rating. Rudy Gobert, who may or may not be my defensive player of the year vote, but we'll see. Is
nice teaser. I like it.
You like the teaser, yeah. It's fantastic. They're taking Donovan Mitchell. They lost their best player in Gordon Hayward and left them this offseason, and I didn't think they were going to be top 12. I thought they were going to be a bottom feeder this year.
They're supposed to be a bottom feeder. They weren't supposed to win like over 30 games this year. They were supposed to be really bad because they have no offense.
More shocking, Pacers or Jazz?
Pacers.
I still say Pacers.
I still say Pacers because the Jazz still had a lot of their core pieces there, but they just lost their best offensive player. There was supposed to be no offense on that team, which there's not a lot of.
There's not a lot.
There's
It's
enough
just
to
Donovan
win.
Mitchell. Yeah, it's just enough to win. They're relying on their defense. I also had Quinn Snyder.
Wow.
Just because I really like the Jazz. And they were just on, they're 23-3 now. They're on that 18-game winning streak or something crazy like that. Like, that's all
They hit
Quinn Snyder.
I think was it 11 in a row they hit.
They had 11, but now they're like,
but then they went on another streak of
yeah,
like 8.
it's kind of absurd. And the teams that are winning are really good. They're beating are really good. The only reason I don't think Brad Stevens should win is a notch below Quinn Snyder is because if you look at the East again now at like the end of the season, it's another really weak year of the East. Like none of the teams that aren't in the playoffs are even remotely good. And then you have Milwaukee, which isn't good. You have Washington, who might be as streaky as OKC, but even worse.
Right, they're really good on a good night, and then they're awful.
Miami is average and an average team. And then so you actually only have 5 teams in your entire conference that are good. You have Indiana, Philly, Cleveland, Toronto, and yourself. So you're only facing 4 teams that are actually good in this whole conference.
I look at the East and I have
That's a fair critique.
I look in the East and I have no idea who's coming out. Like in the West, I'm like, oh, it's got to be the Rockets or Golden State if they can come healthy again. But I look in like Toronto, maybe Cleveland's not good on defense. The Celtics aren't just because they're hurt, which is the biggest point for why Brad Stevens might win. But I think they also just got on that really hot start in the beginning of the year.
I think also Quinn Snyder went through equal adversity.
They lost Gobert for 15 games.
Yeah, Gobert's only played like 53 games this year. So that's really bizarre that they're the 4th seed.
I mean, the Jazz have probably been the second best team in the NBA since about 10 days, 2 weeks before the All-Star break, when they kind of started that big run that got them over 500. Like, do you guys remember that? They were, I think it was 10 games under 500.
And then they won 11 in a row, and they went from the 11th seed to, like, the 10th seed.
Yeah, like, other than Houston, who has been better than them over that stretch? Not Golden State.
No, I don't think any team is. I think, but I think what also will hurt Brad Stevens is the same thing that always hurts Greg Popovich, is that they're at this standard of excellence and consistency, and that whatever Brad does, unless Brad got coach traded to the Pistons and then brought the Pistons up, it's always which coach can bring the least amount of talent up.
They would never let Stan Van Gundy go. That's crazy.
But I feel like that's how Coach of the Year works. It's who can do most with the least. It's not like – and the Celtics lost Gordon Hayward, but they also still had 2 All-Stars.
Yeah.
So it's like –
I'm glad you brought up Popovich because he was it was Quinn, Brad Stevens as 1A, 1B, but I had Popovich right there. And it feels weird because we went through the whole year they're really bad, they're not good, they might not make the playoffs. This is the first year they haven't won 50 in a row. But you look at that roster, and I mean, LaMarcus carried them through the year.
Yeah.
But
and Pop put him in the position to do such.
So you think Pop is top 5 candidate?
I think so.
Oh, absolutely.
I would have had the underrated vote, which is probably the Indiana Pacers coach, because he was supposed to be just an intern job until he found a new guy, and he might actually get himself a salary next year.
Oh, he's getting a salary.
Yeah, so
There's
like,
no way he's not.
but I mean that's super underrated. Like he was just supposed to be like just a I don't know, stepping stone or whatever.
Moving from hourly to salary.
Right.
Baby.
Just kidding. There's no way he's getting paid hourly.
That would suck.
Would it though? Think about the overtime.
Triple overtime.
Let's keep going, boys.
6 weeks.
I'm getting 25 an hour.
Yeah. I'm at OT pay rates, not like overtime in the game. But I appreciate the enthusiasm.
All right. Let's move on to the next one. I think this is the most interesting because before, when some of us show up on time for the podcast, we get a little debating going on.
I like it. And Nick is hijacking your segment.
Oh,
Do it,
no.
Nick. Take it away.
Sixth man of the year. Who do you have?
I had Fred VanVleet.
Stop it!
I said this to you yesterday. I was gonna.
Did you?
Yes.
I didn't.
He hasn't started a single game. I think there should be a criteria for sixth man of the year, and it can't be that you start over 10 games or something like that. It has to be some sort of criteria because Lou Williams
Started too many.
If you start
Eric
over
Gordon
like
started too
15
many.
or something like that, it's too much. Fred VanVleet's been perfect. I think if you asked any Raptors fan about him, he's just phenomenal. And he's like averaging like 12, 4 and 4 in his last 15. And they're playing him in crunch time.
Yeah,
it's
they're
like they
playing
take
more
out
than they-
DeRozan or they take out Lowry and they're like, all right, we're gonna play.
They're playing like 3 guards.
We're gonna play
rotations.
Fred.
So he's kind of emblematic, though, regarding what's wrong with the Raptors and why they're not going to advance in the playoffs. I mean, not that you can hold that against them for the award, but I'm not jacked up on the fact that he's finishing games and sometimes DeRozan isn't. I don't think
Raptors
that's a good
fans
thing.
are because he's clutch.
He's more clutch than friggin' DeRozan sometimes.
I've been saying it all year. You guys have been disagreeing.
I just want a feel-good story.
Nick is slowly coming around to the reality that the Raptors are not coming out of the East. And you're still holding
I said
on.
weeks ago that if I had to place a bet on like what team, I would take the Cavs. Like I said, to make the Eastern Conference Finals, if I had to make that gamble, I said they were going to be there, and I give LeBron any fighting chance. But I don't know. I still believe in the Raptors a little bit.
It's diminishing day by day.
DeRozan's sad.
So when I was looking at this award, I was going in the similar criteria. I was like, oh, Eric Gordon's probably just it because he's Eric Gordon.
Oh, you thought Eric Gordon was the front runner?
Well, I just, assumed.
Lou Williams is the front runner.
Front runner, yeah.
Except that none of us believe he's a real sixth man.
And this team's not even in the playoffs. And then I was like, oh, wow, I forgot that Chris Paul was out for so many games. He's, Eric Gordon had to start 30 games. Like, you're out. So then I picked VanVleet because it was a feel good. But my other pick that I was going to have was Marcus Smart.
You're a bad person, Nick.
What?
All right, so
Marcus Smart.
So I had this as like I choose not to answer for the sixth man until probably about half an hour before the pod when Nick and I were here on time and Lucas was half an hour late. And we were talking about some of these things and he brought up Marcus Smart and he said he wasn't using him. And I was like, you know what? That's a great call. 54 games played. So he's played enough, even though he's been out, since early March. He's played enough to win an award, in my opinion. He's only started 11 games. So to me, 11 games started.
Right?
Still
I always
makes
thought
sense.
he started more.
He has over 10 points per game and just under 5 assists. But we all know Marcus Smart, he's not a stat guy. You don't judge Marcus Smart based on the stats because so much of what he brings to the team doesn't show up on the stat sheet. It's the hustle plays. It's the personality.
It's like Ben Wallace.
Well, yeah, Marcus Smart's not going to be in the Hall of Fame either. Lucas, don't even play your games with me. Rookie of the year. I'm taking over now.
Everyone's taking over.
Nick, who you got? We're cutting Lucas out of this pod right now.
I took the most,
You took Laurie Markin, didn't you?
I did.
That
No,
was
I'm
your
just
pick.
kidding.
You almost blew my mind.
I did a push. I did Simmons and Mitchell.
Ah.
I sat there and I looked and I was like, Simmons is great, defensively, assisting, not great on scoring. Donovan Mitchell's carrying this Jazz team that should have just been terrible. How do you be like, this guy deserves it more than the other? Like both these guys are showing that they deserve this award.
I I agree, but I have Simmons winning because I feel like Simmons is the front runner, and you have to make a case for Donovan Mitchell. I don't think Donovan Mitchell is at the status of like, okay, it's like James Harden is winning MVP, but we have to make a case for Anthony Davis.
I think that's fair. I totally get what you're saying.
It's like Simmons is going to average close to a triple-double or whatever, and he's a rookie.
I don't care about triple-doubles anymore.
He's insane efficiency. He doesn't take jumpers, but apparently he doesn't hurt his team at all.
Right.
So, I mean, just I don't know what else to say. When you watch Simmons, it's like he's this elite presence that no one has really seen in a really long time. And you watch Donovan Mitchell, and he's a really cool shooting guard, but like he could be replaced. And I feel like,
Mitchell's Simmons, actually a rookie.
That's a whole other debate: is if Simmons is actually a rookie or not.
Is Donovan Mitchell a poor man's Devin Booker?
No, I mean, he's better than Devin Booker.
He's not better.
He is not better than Devin Booker.
There's no way. He's probably like a slight tier below because I think I'm really high on Donovan Mitchell.
He's really cool.
He's really cool, but he doesn't have the offensive game of someone like Booker.
I mean, he's only a rookie.
He gets hidden a lot on. Well, I mean, even when Booker was a rookie, he was dirty. But Mitchell's older than Booker.
One team's been to the playoffs, the other hasn't.
Is that true? I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, Mitchell's like 6 months older than Booker.
Wow.
But I'm not trying to knock Mitchell. I just think Simmons is at a different tier. A slight different tier than Mitchell.
I took Simmons as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad if Simmons wins.
I wouldn't be mad if Mitchell won. Like, I think he had a great
That's what
year.
I think.
I would be surprised that
it would be
Simmons
fun to
didn't
have
win.
a Grant Hill, Jason Kidd, like.
I really wish I was, not like 6 when that thing was going on, so I could actually embrace what it felt like to see Jason Kidd and Grant Hill as rookies and see what the similarities would be between the two. Because I feel like there might be a lot of similarities. Because Grant Hill averaged 25 and 5. I don't know what Jason Kidd did his rookie year, but I guess it was enough to win him Rookie of the Year.
Well, we weren't 6. We were 1 year old.
Yeah, I was really confused
I thought it was
when you said
2000.
that.
I thought, they didn't get drafted? Oh.
No, so Jason Kidd, his rookie year averaged 12 points, 2 steals, 7 assists, 5 rebounds.
Oh, was the 99 2000 draft, was that like Elton Brand?
Yeah, it was somewhere around there. But I think just there's different narratives for both of these players to win it. Like we said, Simmons is doing excellent on the team that's finally making it to the playoffs. But so is Mitchell has
the
woes.
same narrative as like the Pacers do. They weren't supposed to do well, and then they blew up. And the Sixers were supposed to be good, but we didn't know how good Simmons was going to be.
And they weren't supposed to be this good this year.
No one, yeah. I had them at like 8 or something like that.
I mean, I feel like you guys talked about, Ben Simmons a lot, and I didn't get to say anything. I feel like Nick right now. Like, just being talked over and
now you should know how the podcast feels for
dismissed.
me.
Lucas, you want to take back charge of this quarter?
What other awards do we have?
Oh, do we not have any more awards?
Defensive Player of the Year.
I thought we did. Oh, no, we do have Defensive Player of the Year. You jumped on my list. I had Defensive Player second. For Defensive Player of the Year, I have Anthony Davis, but I have like 3 people in that category. I have AD winning it.
Did you change it after our interview? Because he was just so damn persuasive?
No.
You did pull a pen out. I took your pen. I don't know.
Mine's on the floor.
Lucas is a known fidgeter. If you ever hear any, slightly perturbing
It's because I'm just so excited. I need to fidget with something.
Okay, so you have Anthony Davis.
I have AD, and then I have Embiid as a close second, and I would have voted for Gobert if he had played more games. I think there has to be a high standard for games played because Embiid has impacted the game more, just cumulatively. Like, he just has. More games played, leads the league in blocks. I have to go AD. He has to win some award this year. He deserves something, and this is what he deserves. Embiid is close, though.
Yeah, I gave it to Embiid. I don't think Anthony Davis is as impactful on defense. I'm sorry.
Really?
I don't. I really don't.
He can switch. He can do everything.
People he's matching up against only shoot 50.5% from within 6 feet with him defending them. That's the league best. It's the league best. The difference in pretty much every defensive statistic for the 76ers when he's on the court versus off the court.
They're
It's
insane.
huge. It's market. I mean, I just don't think there's any other player out there that is as impactful on the defensive side for his team.
Well, I would say Gobert. I mean, like, I'd pick Embiid because he played more games. If we're doing, like, Embiid
We're
and
talking
Gobert.
Embiid won't play again for the rest of the regular season. Gobert will
Right.
probably play 4 more, so I'll
So
get
how
him up
many
to
games
50.
has Embiid played?
Embiid's played 63.
That's still not a lot.
Gobert will be up to 56.
56.
So if you're giving it, I mean, Gobert has changed.
63 is a lot of games. I don't know what you're talking about.
So then, like, that extra, those 5 chump games against some really bad teams. I think I picked Gobert because I think he has significantly taken this Jazz team from being, like, average defensively to the best defense in the league. He is the lockdown on the best defense in the league. Them and the Celtics are tied.
He would have been my second pick, and I would have had AD third.
I had Gobert, Embiid, and even Al Horford up there. But Al Horford was more like there's got to be someone on this Celtics team.
Al Horford, I don't know. I think,
It was like a distant,
yeah.
just like a 1 vote for him. Throw him some
At
change.
least we all have the same people in the same category, basically.
We can agree.
We can agree
on
that we have a top 3 list.
Welcome back to the last 4th quarter of the regular NBA season. Yeah,
Building it up. I like it.
it's sad. I just realized it earlier today when I was picking the games because I'm always prepared weeks ahead of time. No, that's not true.
Not like old half-hour late Lucas.
Yeah, third time this podcast we've referenced that. I like it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So last week's record, Lucas and Jason tied with 3-2. I lost 2 weeks in a row.
3 weeks in a row going 3-2. This is wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, but
You're still well below 500.
no, but the bright
No.
side is yes,
I'm pretty close, right?
you cannot get above 500.
Yes.
Well, I thought we're not doing playoffs. We're not going into the playoffs with these records.
It's a whole new thing.
Oh,
Yeah, we'll have
thing.
playoffs.
Regular
Okay,
season,
all right.
postseason.
All right. Sounds good.
Not that was established, but I'm just saying. It's a
Now
whole
we're
new
doing
thing.
it, so you
Off
can
the
lose.
Bringing it back around. All right, back to my quarter, the 4th quarter. The only time I get to talk more than you guys.
Fair.
All right, we're going into game 1.
Can't argue that.
Portland Trail Blazers versus the Houston Rockets. Thursday night game. Starting off tomorrow. Give us some time to think about this. Rockets are favored 78%. It's the end of the season. These games matter a little bit more for, the Trailblazers. And I'm loving what Dame's been bringing. Lucas, let's start off with you. Who you got?
Blazers.
Blazers.
Yep.
Off the cuff. He's going fast this week.
Easy. We're going to pound these out. Let's go Blazers.
Blazers. All right.
I'm taking the Rockets.
Oh, okay. He's trying to play favorable. He's trying to get back.
I'm mostly just trying to stay away from Lucas's picks, obviously.
I just think Portland needs like 1 or 2 games. They just want that like another game cushion away from whoever is going to get to 4.
I hear you. It's definitely more meaningful for them, but I still think Houston, whether or not CP3 just kind of happens to sit or Harden doesn't play, they really are on another level, and I think they can win any game against any opponent with or without all their players.
Yeah.
But like we've watched this game together before.
We watched it, right?
The last time they played together, and it was a fantastic game. Nurkic was taking it to Capella, but Dame and CJ had rough games.
Yeah.
But I think this time they're going to do well. I'm taking the Blazers.
All right.
I'm
like
picking with Lucas, which makes me feel really bad. Game 2 in Philadelphia. One of the members of the Sip and Slish podcast will be at this game. It's the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers are favored 70% just because Jason's going to be there.
Damn right.
I told the BPI what's up, and they listened.
Dude, my brother will not have season tickets after this game. I'm telling you, they will be taken away because I'm going to get in LeBron's head so hard. So hard. I'm going to be that dude.
You better wear your Sip and Swish shirt.
I don't know if I'm going to wear my Sip and Swish shirt. I'm not going to lie.
God.
I might dress like a little fancy.
Nah.
You've sat in these seats. These are nice seats.
They are nice seats.
Well, we're not going to
But I
say
didn't have this-
say how nice, but they're nice seats.
I didn't have my Sip and Swish shirt then. I would have worn it.
Obviously, I'm taking the Sixers. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be rooting like a madman.
That's going to be such a fun game.
Yeah, I mean, Honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this. I actually do just think the Sixers are the better team.
Oh my god, I thought you were gonna pick Cavs. I really thought you were gonna flip the whole script.
And I'm picking the Cavs.
I'm gonna pick the Cavs because Embiid's out, Sark is out. LeBron doesn't want to fall to 4. I just don't see it. Picking Cavs.
He's so thoughtful with his picks. We're just over here like
All heart.
Screw it.
Yeah, all heart and PBR.
lots of PBR. I'm gonna take the 76ers
My man.
just to support my friend.
I'm really excited about this game though. I really want to watch it, but I can't because I'll have to work. But
Oh, I already called out.
you called out good.
Yeah, I'm going to the game. We didn't tell you. It was discussed earlier. Whoever showed up.
This is
first.
where I leave the podcast.
Yeah.
So it's the real pod now.
Finally. All right.
God.
Game 3. The Denver Nuggets versus the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, this is an important game. This is deciding maybe the 8th seed or who's 9th and 10th.
That is actually a good game.
That is. Thank you. I pick a lot of good
No, you
games,
don't.
Mr. Sarcasm over there. You know. Clippers are favored 61%. Jason, you're going to lead us off again. Making you work on this one.
I'm not taking the Clippers.
Ooh, okay.
I'm ready for the Clippers, and that's really where I'm going to focus here. I'm ready for the Clippers to just officially finish blowing it up. And I don't know if they're going to.
I don't think they're trying anymore. That's what everyone thought, but then they.
Well, no. I mean, I know this regular season, they're trying to win.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm ready for the end of this iteration of the Clippers. I think it's time. I don't want to see Doc and Austin doing their thing anymore. It's awkward. Let's move on. Lucas?
Honestly, I have no idea who to pick. This seems like a wash to me. Like, Denver's last 5, they lost to Toronto, but then they won overtime against OKC, which seems really weird to me.
Beating OKC is nothing.
And then
Yeah.
in Milwaukee, they had overtime, so I feel like that's actually a loss that they had to go to overtime against Milwaukee. But then they beat the Pacers by 3.
That's
and
legit.
Then the Clippers, in the last 5 they only beat San Antonio, but they lost to Indiana and they lost to Portland. I honestly have no idea who to pick.
You gotta
just
make
sucks.
one.
It totally sucks because Gary Harris is still out, Gallinari's out.
Yeah, but does Gallinari actually?
I actually
play
don't know if
basketball?
Gallinari is still a basketball player. I want to pick the Nuggets.
Okay. Well, you're both wrong. So the Clippers are going to win.
Okay.
We always knew that.
I think I actually pick the Clippers more often than not. Whenever you pick a Clippers game, I just pick them. They actually win.
I know, which is weird because Bill Simmons goes there. He's a season ticket holder.
That's really annoying. He's a season ticket holder of the Clippers.
Why is that annoying?
Of all teams, the Clippers.
Yeah, but it's like, would he rather go to the Lakers games?
It's more cost effective than the Lakers.
Oh, it really is.
Oh, yeah.
It definitely is.
Like, if you're going to spring for season tickets and you're not really
Is-
a hometown fan of either,
His options are like Lakers, Clippers, Warriors, and like Kings, right? If you're in California.
Yeah, but even the last.
I mean,
year-
California's pretty big, Lucas. Like,
Yeah, it's not a big team, right?
Well, no, I'm
but-
just saying, like, driving. Your
it
options
would
are
suck.
one of the LA.
I mean,
teams.
I feel like Bill Simmons could, if he wanted to get to one of those.
That's
games
like saying
every
we
night.
could have season tickets for.
Boston.
No way.
Yeah.
No.
Boston, Toronto, and New York City. They're all the same.
LA to San Francisco, I'm pretty sure is like a 6-hour drive.
He can
I was
fly.
going to say 2.
He can fly.
I don't know. Geography too well. All right, let's go to the next game.
Come on, you
Let's
guys.
gloss over this real quick. We're picking another Denver game because I'm really intrigued by this bottom half of the Western Conference because there's some
They're fighting for that 8th spot.
they're fighting to get in. So it's Portland again, but they're playing Denver. And I think this is an
Denver?
In Denver.
Okay.
I think it's an interesting Nurkic versus Jokic
Oh my
matchup.
god, it was the last game in Denver?
The last game was in Los Angeles.
Goddamn.
This one is in Denver, so I'm gonna sneak out and pick the Blazers real fast because it's Dame time.
Blazers.
I guess for the sake of choosing a different team, I'm going to go Nuggets because they're at home. And playing in that Mile High Stadium is pretty hard. Every single NBA player has come out and be like, I can't really play under that condition. And if the Nuggets,
You mean high? Like,
you got very,
yeah.
very
For 20
high off life, right, Nick?
Blaze it.
But yeah, so if like the Trailblazers win their next like 2 games or whatever, and they feel comfortable, they have a cushion, then they go into a stadium where they don't want to play. I feel like the Nuggets can probably take advantage of
That
that.
was something I was looking into.
They're still
That's a legit point because they could have solidified that third seed at that point.
Yeah, they'll be 5 or 6 games up, and then the Nuggets will still be like the 9th seed hunting that 8th seed. I'm going to go Nuggets. I think that's a fair bet.
It is something I was looking at when I was picking these final games. Was like, oh, do I want to pick a team that will rest their player, or I'm trying to find teams. And
See, now it's really weird. It's like you have to pick games from like the 9th to like 4th seeds
because they're all over the place. But then a lot of them are playing like the Kings or they're playing the Suns. I'm like, okay, these games.
Yeah, these are going to be terrible because they're just going to tank.
So I had to repick a couple teams here. We're gonna go off. We're gonna end the season strong with my boy Giannis Antetokounmpo in your guys' Rookie of the Year pick. So it's the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Philadelphia 76ers.
Talk about a game where you don't know what, if anything, is going to be at stake.
I don't know who's showing up. I don't know who's going to actually play basketball that game. It's going to just be Ben Simmons versus Giannis.
Isn't it a weird scenario in which they could just rest Giannis because they're not going to lose whatever spot they get to?
But I think it really depends because who they want to play or not.
Right, so it's basically...
It could also be the 76ers do the same thing and they rest Simmons and be like, we want to play...
They could just have like a gentleman's agreement where like, okay, we want to play the Celtics as the Bucks.
It says the Rockets a couple years ago when they got in before... It was the Jazz-Lakers game when Kobe retired.
Right.
And the Jazz were like, we're not getting in the playoffs. So like, they helped Kobe get to 60. It's like one of those like, all right, we'll just help the other team out.
It could be something like that, which is really weird and annoying, which makes this game a complete like coin flip.
Yeah. So who are you taking?
Taking the Bucks. I don't know if they're going to rest Giannis. I don't think Giannis wants to rest.
So Lucas picked it against the Sixers twice in this quarter.
I did.
You're dead to me.
I picked the Thunder twice last week.
Yeah, and that actually worked out.
It worked out. Which is really, like, that is a streaky call.
The Pelicans lost twice.
I know.
I'm going Sixers.
Okay.
Obviously. I'm only going heart picks from here on out.
I'm trying to
put
like logic on all these picks.
The last week until we get into the playoff.
And then I can't go heart picks because then, like, Lucas, we're all going to be at the same record again, so I'm going to have to defeat the Lucas.
Oh, God.
The Lucas curse. I'm going with my boy Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's going to take down Ben Simmons.
You guys are awful.
I picked them once.
They'll probably keep resting Saric and Embiid and all them.
Well, Embiid's not coming back till I'd say game 2. Game 2.
Game 2.
What is the win today?
It's an earthquake.
All right, on that note, we're going to end the Sip and Swish podcast. Thank you so much for listening this week. Make sure to check us out on Twitter at Sip and Swish, on Facebook at Sip and Swish NBA. We also have a website, thesipandswish.com. Check that out. We got all of our podcasts on there, and we have all of our picks from every fourth quarter. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for listening. Leave a review when you get a chance. It helps us out a ton. Thank you so much. Tune in next week on Thursday when we give you our playoff forecast, picking all the playoff games. Thank you so much.